$10, $20, $30,000 in Turo disasters. I've experienced it all. And there is actually a way on how to avoid bad renters. So in this video, I'm gonna go over all the crazy scenarios that I've experienced, including one that just happened last week with the Porsche, and how you can avoid bad renters and tens of thousands of dollars in loss of business and damage to your vehicle. So we're gonna go over some stuff. I'm actually gonna show you guys videos from these incidents that have taken place and just how these bad outcomes can affect you as a host and what you can do to avoid it. So let's get into it. All right, you guys, I want to show you guys the crazy experiences that I've had with some of my cars, and I'm going to continue to explain how you can avoid these instances. If you're liking this video so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get into some knife fights. One day early in the morning, I get a message from my renter who has my Corvette and he's getting ready to return it. And this was super early that day. And he said that, you know, there was an incident and he got into an altercation. There was some damage done to the Corvette. And I've never seen anything like this, and I want to show you guys, so let's take a look. And this was a couple years ago, but it never gets old. So this guy literally got into a knife fight that morning, and as you guys can see here, my Corvette seats were slashed with a knife. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. It was just insane. And it kind of just makes you think about, like, what are people up to and what are they doing? Now, in hindsight, you know, was there anything in this particular scenario I could have done to prevent this? I think so. You know, this was when COVID first happened, and I had really heavily discounted my prices because if you're a host around COVID, then you know that, you know, business literally went to zero, and that attracted some bad renters. And so that would be my second piece of advice, is that don't ever discount your prices so much to where it's going to attract really bad renters. And as you guys just saw from that clip, you know, my seats were slashed, my tires were slashed, and eventually, you know, even the cops reached out to me because this whole incident, I guess, was reported wherever it took place, and they wanted to investigate further and asked me for more information about the person who rented the car and any details I could give them. And so, you know, this could have been completely prevented. But during that time, I was just in a different mindset of, hey, I need to get as many bookings as I possibly can, because literally everything was down to zero. There was nobody really going out, traveling. This was, I think, June of 2020. So it's very early on when everything just went crazy. And unfortunately, that does attract bad renters. So to learn good pricing strategies and to learn how to look at a renter's profile and stuff, it does take a lot of time in learning the market and understanding, you know, how different price points can attract different guests. And, you know, I want to hear from you guys if you guys have ever noticed that. I've heard this from hosts many times in the past that, yes, you can really lower your prices, but sometimes it's not worth it because the cost is getting bad renters who are just going to cost you thousands of dollars in repairs, in cost of cleaning, damages, and, you know, sometimes really small things happen that you can't repair, and so then it just sort of devalues your car. So I would love to hear from you guys if you've experienced things like this, and if you really want to learn more about how to vet your renters so that you can avoid things like this, please learn from my mistakes. And I share all my mistakes in my Turo course at powerhost.club. I'm running a Black Friday special, which is for a very limited time. You can use the promo code Turo25 for 25% off my powerhost.club Turo course. Okay, guys, so the next scenario I want to get into, which till this day kind of breaks my heart, because it was actually another Turo host that rented my Corvette and just completely demolished it. And this was literally thousands of dollars in having to replace tires, and was just a huge headache. And it's just kind of crazy that there's people out there that do stuff like this. Now, let me just mention this one little caveat, because, you know, I don't want it to seem like, oh, this stuff happens all the time. Stuff like this is very rare, few and far between. But it's important to avoid incidents like this, because when they do happen, it can really take a toll on you and kind of leave a bad impression on you as a host about renting your car out on the platform. Now, for me personally, in the last couple of years, I would say my claims rate overall across all of my trips that I've hosted is probably less than 1%. Now, I think the platform average is somewhere around 2 to 3% of all your trips will end up in some sort of a claim, and that can be minor stuff from minor scrapes on a bumper to a wheel to major accidents. So overall, generally what I've seen throughout the years is that Turo's platform has improved so much that you generally don't see this stuff happen. I mean, it's extremely rare, and if you can learn to kind of use your spidey senses to cancel trips on people who seem shady and not drop your prices so much that it attracts the wrong crowd, then you will generally do a pretty good job at avoiding these types of situations entirely. So those are the steps that you really want to follow. Now, this incident here, I'm going to show you guys some video footage, is of another Turo host who rented my Corvette. Until this day, my gut instinct tells me that he probably like sub-rented it to someone else or subleased it to someone else. And so that's potentially what happened. If not, then he just took my car for a joyride and decided to burn out every single tire. So let's take a look at this clip and how my Corvette came back. It was just really insane. So now I know it's a bit hard to see, but basically what happened is the Corvette came back and the tires looked super weird. They had this like brown sort of dust all around the tire, and it kind of looked like a tire that had been maybe sitting out in the sun for a really long time, which kind of gets that layer of brownness on it. And so I was like, this looks a little bit odd because my tires never look like that. And so I took a closer look at it and I noticed that there was so much burnt tire rubber around the wheel wells of my car, as you can see right here. I mean, it was literally inches thick and you could scrape it off and just tons of it was coming off, and it was wrapped all the way around the wheel well, which clearly means that somebody either took this to a track or was somewhere burning out tires like really hardcore. And you can see just the rubber kind of coming off. It's even below the bottom bumper. I mean, it was just absolutely insane. And so when I took a closer look at the tires that were really browning, I noticed that, hey, you know what? These are not the tires that the car went out on a rental with. These are not my tires that I put on this car. And so what this host ended up doing was actually burning out the tires, or whoever did it, and then they ended up replacing the tires with some really bad used tires. And you can see right here, I can literally scrape the rubber off the wheel wells, and it was just so thick. I mean, that rubber, I remember on that car, I've sold that car since. I mean, it was there for a long time. I had it power washed, cleaned, tried to get it off, and it was just insane. And you can just see the thickness of it. I mean, it's insane. I get crazy flashbacks when looking at this. And again, comment below, let me know what you guys think about what happened. But here's the thing on this rental. You can see there's just some pretty crazy stuff, and who knows mechanically what type of toll that took on the car. Till this day, I don't know, but it probably wasn't good. But I couldn't have avoided a situation like this. I think when another host rents from you, you feel like you have this sort of mutual respect level, and that you know that your car is gonna be in really good hands. I know I recently rented a Turo car in Hawaii just a few weeks back, and I made sure to let the host know, hey, I'm a host. You don't have to worry at all. I'm gonna make sure I take really good care of your car, treat it as if it's my own. And so in a situation like this, these are kind of like the outliers, the anomalies where you can do everything right. You can price your car right, you can make sure you vet out the renter, and everything can look perfect. But when the car comes back, you know, there's thousands of dollars in damages. And so there are some scenarios that unfortunately just cannot be helped. And all you can do is just make sure that you understand how to properly document your car, you understand how to properly utilize your Turo host protection plan so that it doesn't end up costing you anything. And from my memory, Turo did take care of all the damages. They paid for new tires on the car. And so everything worked out fine in the end. And I did report that host. I believe that he's no longer on the platform anymore, but it's just insane because things like that can happen. So it's really important to educate yourself, and not only that, but really pay attention to the people renting your cars, and you're gonna start to notice patterns, right? Shady people kind of always follow the same patterns. They have bad communication, or they have communication that doesn't really make sense. And before the start of a trip, they'll kind of give you a hard time. Maybe they don't want to upload their IDs. Maybe they feel uncomfortable sharing information with you. Maybe they're unresponsive and they don't communicate well with you. These are all signs of people who may potentially be red flag renters. And if you ever come across that, just cancel. That way it's never becomes an issue, never turns into a thing, and you can just purely avoid issues like that. Now, I got a really good booking for my Porsche came in. It was about a 1-week booking, came in real last minute with about a 1-hour notice before the trip started. The renter who booked the car had no previous trips or any previous reviews. He was new to the platform, which is totally fine. Nothing unusual to see here. So as I was getting the car ready for pickup, I got a message from the renter asking me to meet him off of 2 freeways, kind of like an intersection. And it wasn't the best area at all. And mind you, I don't offer delivery. So right away, just something in my gut instinct gave me a bad feeling about this renter. Maybe it was the location, maybe it was how he was communicating, but just something felt really, really off. And this is pretty unusual. It doesn't happen often. But as soon as I got that bad feeling, I was like, you know what? While this rental is great, it was almost, I think, like a $700 rental on the Porsche. I was like, you know, I don't want to take the risk of somebody taking my car who doesn't have any previous reviews and potentially ending up with a Porsche coming back with tons of damages or issues. And I was also going on vacation for about a week, so it was just something that I didn't want to deal with. So I went with my gut feeling and I decided to just cancel that trip. Now, last week I was curious to see if that guy went and rented from anyone else, and if I was just being paranoid about the situation and maybe I missed out on a rental. And so I went back to his profile and I was shocked to see the results. So now let me take you through the process of what happens when you cancel a booking and kind of what happened after that. So let's get into it. Okay, now you can see here on my screen, when I canceled the reservation, Turo's gonna make you give a reason as to why you're doing it. Is it because your car isn't available? Is it because it needs maintenance? What's going on? And they have one option called I'm uncomfortable with this trip. And that's what I put because that was the truth. Something about that trip made me uncomfortable and I couldn't really explain it. So I just messaged Turo saying, hey, you know, this guy's asking me to meet him off the freeway. I don't offer delivery. Something seems off. He has no previous reviews and I feel uncomfortable, so I'm gonna go ahead and cancel it. Now, when you do that, depending on your status as a host, you might have to pay a cancellation penalty fee, and it can, of course, hurt your metrics. But my advice on how to avoid bad rentals is when you've been doing this long enough, you kind of get this instinctive gut feeling. And for those of my host friends that have been doing this for a while, I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And when you get that gut feeling that, hey, something seems off, I really don't care about what my Turo metrics say or if Turo support doesn't like it, because at the end of the day, you as the host are going to be the one that has to deal with the headache that comes along with a car being damaged or destroyed. So my advice is how to avoid bad renters. Cancel the trips if you feel like something is off, because it's not worth it. Now, you are going to get a little bit of a slap on the wrist. Turo's going to send you an email that's going to sound a little intimidating, but don't let it get to you. So let me read what it says. It says, hi, Saimah. Thank you for being an all-star host on Turo. We hope everything's good with you. We wanted to follow up with you about the trip you recently canceled. After reviewing the details of the trip, we unfortunately cannot waive the cancellation penalties in this instance. While we completely understand that you may have to cancel a trip for a variety of reasons, cancellations can be extremely difficult for guests. We expect hosts to effectively manage their listings to help minimize cancellations. Please keep in mind that I'm uncomfortable with this trip, quote unquote, option presented during the cancellation process is not intended to cover situations involving scheduling conflicts, car maintenance, or issues with the listing. The option is intended to keep you safe in serious situations where you would like to alert Turo in this situation. If you have any other questions about cancellations, please let me know. Now, I totally get it. As a platform, of course, Turo wants to maintain high standards and consistency, and they don't want hosts to get away with just canceling trips because, you know, maybe your car isn't available and you didn't unblock it on your calendar, but none of that happened here. Now, to the guest, when you cancel a trip, you have to send a message to the guest as well. So obviously I wasn't gonna say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this trip for a reason that I can't exactly explain. So I just told them, hey, you know what? This booking was last minute. Looks like I'm not going to be available. But you send a separate message to Turo, and in that message, I disclosed to them why I was uncomfortable with the trip. So while the two might not line up, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you don't want to be the one left holding the bag when something goes wrong. So as you get those reps in and continue to do a high frequency of rentals, you will learn some of the red flags. So for me, the primary red flag was the fact that he was asking me to meet him off of these two freeways, and it was in a very shady area, and not to mention it was also far away from where I live, probably about 45 minutes. So I just wasn't going to do that. And plus, he had no previous trips, and I clearly do not offer delivery in my profile. So that kind of set off some red flags for me. So if you find anything a bit suspicious, you want to cancel. So here's the good stuff right here. Now I went back because I wanted to see what happened to their guests. So when you go to your trip history, you can actually see the trips that you have canceled, just like this that you can see here on my screen. And you can click on the renter's profile. And sure enough, at no surprise to me, I saw that he had a 1-star rating. And so I'm so glad that the host who had bad experiences with him ended up leaving reviews. Now, these are right after I canceled. So essentially, I canceled the trip and he went right back on the platform and booked with another host on the platform, and one that is local to me. And that host left a review saying, "Do not let this renter book from you. Renter abused our Porsche, drove it very hard, smoked in the vehicle, returned it with a half tank when presented full. He changed the trip without my consent and threw a nail on the sidewall of my tire so he could get it towed to my place instead of driving back. Please avoid at all costs." Then the guy proceeded to book another car after that. You know, by that point, I'm assuming that the review that the first host left with the Porsche didn't register. So the next host may have not seen it, but you know, too bad that Turo didn't block him from renting on the platform again. Now the second host just wrote 1-star review. I don't know why he is doing this. He doesn't respect your car at all. You really want to try and do your best to avoid it. And if you get any red flags, make sure you're looking at their profiles, look at their past trips. If somebody has a 1, 2, 3-star review, I avoid at all costs. Cancel, 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 regardless of what the metrics are. And just to be sure, I took a poll in my private community at powerhost.club, and I wanted to see, was I being paranoid, or is this something that people would do as well? And overwhelmingly, majority of the people in my private community voted that they would have canceled that trip also. I did reach out to the host whose renter got destroyed, so I might do a part 2 on this video. He's gonna get in touch with me and kind of share more with me about exactly what happened, but just from our initial conversation, he said by far it's been one of the worst renters he's ever come across. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted on that. All right, you guys, now one video that I would highly recommend that you watch so you get a good feel for this is the 3 things that you want to do to really get a good grasp of how the Turo platform works. And I do a deep dive into this, and by learning that, you can avoid situations like this, so you can catch that video right here.